So, it takes a lot for a TV show to make me cry. And I just finished The Arrow, and The Arrow succeeded in that. Now, I heard about this psychology thing where when you feel emotional when a character dies, it's because your brain is processing it like they actually died because you got to know them. And that's also one thing why I prefer TV shows over movies, because with a movie, you just watch it for 2 hours, then boom, you're done. You don't really get to experience the characters of the world. But a TV show, you have multiple seasons to do that. And The Arrow is way better than The Flash and pulls at my heartstrings way more. And so let's get into my Arrow Season 7 and 8 review, because I just finished the series. Now, I did not post my Season 7 review. I recorded it, but I never posted it. Actually, no. Let's do an entire review of the series now that I'm thinking back on it. So here we go. I gotta think, because I started watching the Arrow Season 1 all the way back in December. So, Season 1. It was a really great introduction to the overall show and the status quo. And I kind of felt like a lot of the plot lines, like with Vertigo, were pretty interesting. Although I will say the Vertigo plot lines got really tiring, because I think the last Vertigo plot line was Season 6. So yeah. Then, eventually, but like, Season 1 was also kind of forgettable, maybe because I binged watched it too much. But I don't remember really much of it. In fact, I didn't even know who the villain was until the season finale. And yeah. But it was a really good season finale. It was the first time I really saw the villain win in something. And so yeah, that was pretty cool. So Season 1, I give it a good 8 out of 10. Season 2, this was a good season. So Season 2 had kind of a super soldier rip off of it with Slade Wilson. Now, here's the thing. With Season 1, the plot lines between Oliver's time on the island and Oliver's time back home never intersected. They were all the same. They were completely two different stories, pretty much. But with Season 2, they intersected with Slade Wilson. Now, I knew of Slade Wilson before, because I remember, you guys are probably going to hate me for this, but when I was younger, I watched Teen Titans Go, and I remember Slade Wilson was in that. And I think he was in the original Teen Titans, too. I haven't seen the original Teen Titans in probably over a decade. No, hasn't been a decade, but it's definitely been a long time. Because I always preferred the original Teen Titans to Teen Titans Go, even when I was a dumb kid. But it was never on, pretty much. They always just ran Teen Titans Go instead, so I just watched that. But anyway, I knew Slade Wilson because of Teen Titans Go. And so when I watched The Arrow and mentioned Slade Wilson, I'm like, wait, isn't that guy who has the orange and black outfit or something? I don't know his name. But then throughout Season 1's plotline of the island, I was like, maybe he's a good guy, and I was just wrong. And in Season 2, he gets infected with the Mirakuru, and then he's a bad guy called Deathstroke, and I'm like, okay, I was right. But it was really good, because it was really interesting to see Oliver's former friend become the villain. And the whole Mirakuru plotline and stuff, it was great. And Sarah coming back, it was the start of faking out Sarah's. No, that wasn't the start of faking Sarah's death. That was pretty much the start of, well, this character isn't actually dead, which we'll get into later, because there are a lot of characters where they're like, they're not dead. So anyway, yeah, season 2 was great. I really loved it. And then season 3, season 3 was pretty forgettable. I'd say it's more forgettable than season 1. Ra's al Ghul being the villain was, it was overall a forgettable season. Sarah dying was kind of out of nowhere. And then finally it intersected with the Flash. Well, technically did in season 2 though. Yeah, season 3 was not as good, but it was still pretty good. I'd give it, I forgot to say what I'd give season 8. I'd give season 2 a high 8 out of 10. And season 3 a middle 7 out of 10. Now, for season 4, season 4 was a pretty good season. A little forgettable as well, but much better. With Laurel dying at the end, that was kind of a shocker, but also like they foreshadowed it in the first episode. They showed a gravestone, but they didn't show who it was, and that prompted me to look it up. And then I was like, well, shoot, you spoiled it for me. Although I already watched The Flash, and they mentioned in one episode, like, it was the episode where Black Siren came to their Earth, and they were like, the Laurel Lance of this Earth is dead, or something. I can't remember. So I knew from watching The Flash that Laurel died, but it's still kind of stung that they just showed a grave in the first episode of a season. So yeah, that was I'd say a high 7 out of 10. Damien Darhk was also a great villain too. And Oliver coming back as the Green Arrow instead of the Arrow was also pretty good. Alright, season 5. In my opinion, the best season. Because Adrian Chase being the son of a person that Oliver killed during his killing spree was an amazing idea. And then getting a new team together after Laurel's death, because she didn't want to be the last canary. And so they got Dinah, and they also got Renee, and they got Curtis. And it's like, they had replaceable, The Flash introduced kind of replaced characters, eventually after, in season 6, that were kind of meant to replace the other characters. And you can tell, because they weren't as memorable and stuff. I'm talking about Allegra, Mark, Chester. Those 3 were pretty forgettable. And definitely felt like replacement characters. But, in the Arrow, Renee, Dinah, and Curtis all feel like their own characters. And they don't feel like replacements, because they're not. They are their own characters that are introduced to add out the story and get you to love more characters. And it's like, the Arrow did LGBTQ representation way better than The Flash. Because The Flash had David Singh, who mentioned twice throughout all 9 seasons of The Flash that he had a husband. But Curtis being gay was brought up a lot of the times and affected the story and his character development. It was done really well, I'd say. How did I not bring up William yet? I just realized that. But at the end of season 5, with Oliver's son William getting kidnapped by the villain Adrian Chase and brought to Lian-Yu, and Adrian Chase giving an ultimatum: save William but your friends die, or save your friends but William dies. That was a crazy ultimatum, and it was a really great finale. And Adrian Chase, the best villain in season 5, the best season. And the way it ended with Adrian Chase killing himself to blow up the island, ooh, that was like, I was just so shocked. And I could not wait to find out what happened. Then came the worst season. Ugh, really? Just like the Arrow, or just like the Flash, the Arrow kind of fell off after season 5. Well, actually, no, the Flash fell off before that. But like, season 6 was so forgettable. I struggled to even know who was the villain. Was it Caden James or Ricardo Diaz? I didn't even mention what I'd give season 5 a rating. I'd give it a very, very high, almost 9 out of 10, but 8 out of 10. Very high 8 out of 10. For season 5. No, season 6. Oh. Man, I could not tell you what happened in it. Maybe because I binged watched it really fast, so I don't remember a lot of the stuff that happened in it. I actually binged watched season 8 even faster, but that's a smaller season. Slade Wilson becoming a good guy again was kind of interesting. That's all I can remember, except for Oliver being outed as the Green Arrow, and admitting that he's the Green Arrow at the end, and then season 7 starts with him in prison. So I'd give season 6 a middle 6 out of 10. It was, all right. But then season 7 was a little bit better. Starting out with Oliver in prison, and then he eventually gets out. And then the villain being Oliver's sister, dun dun dun, product of an affair that his dad had. Which, I'm not surprised that they did that. They mentioned multiple times that he cheated on Moira a lot. So I'm not surprised that they introduced Oliver's illegitimate sister. Well, he already had one, Thea. But like, yeah. I'm not really surprised. She wasn't really the greatest villain either. I'd honestly say Ricardo Diaz was a better villain. So yeah. But then the flash forwards to the future bits I loved. Those were great. And I just realized they didn't mention a bunch of the crossovers, which I will at the end of this video, because now it's just kind of weird to mention them now. But yeah, season 7 was pretty forgettable. So I'd give it like a 6.7 out of 10. Not the greatest. Yeah. Season 8. All about building up to Crisis. And one thing, though, is that I knew that Oliver would die. Even before I started watching The Arrow, because I watched The Flash, like I mentioned before. And I knew Oliver would die, because I also watched Crisis. Except for the episode that was on Batwoman, because that's not on Netflix. But this time, when we get to Crisis, I'll talk about it. But like, I finally watched the Batwoman episode because I signed up for HBO Max. But anyway, oh, sorry. Oh. Tired. But anyway, with them building up to Crisis, a lot of it was that, and then bringing the kids from the future back to the past for Crisis was also pretty great. Now, season 8 was a much shorter season, but yeah, even without Crisis, it was still a great season. And then episode 9 and 10, especially 10 made me cry. Which is really, I don't cry a lot at movies and TV shows. But with episode 10, it did make me cry. just because of how emotional it was that Oliver was leaving behind his wife and kids. And so I'd give season 8 a high 8 out of 10. Now, let's talk about the specials, the crossovers. Okay. So, Crisis... so, let me think. The one about the Dominators, I still haven't watched all the way through, I just never bothered. So it was pretty forgettable. Next I'm going to watch Supergirl. I don't know if the Dominator thing is on there. I don't think it is. I think it's just on Flash, Arrow, and Legends. I could be wrong on that. But yeah, the Dominators I haven't watched all the way through because I didn't bother. And then Crisis on Earth X was, that was a pretty good crossover, I'd say. But, like, the whole with Overgirl and Dark Arrow being married, they just had, their interactions together, they looked like two people who barely talked, who got married 5 seconds before the episodes, before the crossover started. They do not feel like a married couple. And again, it's just a crossover and that it's not the main characters or anything, but still. But also, them saying that there were only, like, what, 50, what did you say, like, 50 Earths? And then Earth X? I don't know, it just doesn't make much sense to me. So, yeah. It was alright, I'd say middle 7 out of 10. Oliver getting married, well, Oliver and Felicity getting married, though, was pretty good. And Barry and Iris getting married, too. Anyway, then we get to Elseworlds. What did I think of Elseworlds? Just filler for Crisis. That was it. For Crisis on Infinite Earths. It was just filler for Crisis. I can't even tell you what really happened in it. I'd give it a 6 out of 10. Then the main one, Crisis on Infinite Earths. Like I said, when I last watched Crisis on Infinite Earths, I didn't watch the Batwoman episode until now because I signed up for HBO Max. So, full Crisis. It was great. It was a great crossover, high stakes. I loved it. And Oliver's sacrifice was great. And really helped the story and really made me feel things. And after watching Crisis, after watching The Arrow, his death hit different. Way different. But I will say this, episode 5 was pure filler. They could have been, like, at the start of each show, like, oh, here's the differences and stuff after Crisis. So, anyway, let's begin. They did not have to make an entire 40-minute episode dedicated to it. They could have just, each in their respective shows, been like, oh, those are the differences. That'd have been better, in my opinion, and easier. Because it was just kind of filler and didn't matter much. And, with Oliver's sacrifice bringing back Quentin, Tommy, Moira, and am I forgetting anyone else? Quentin, Tommy, Moira. I don't think I'm forgetting anybody. But, like, that was kind of a shocker. And then, well, like, this was also in Arrow season 8. I forgot to mention that. Like, yeah, Laurel